Meghan Markle just got caught in what might be her coldest move yet, and this time it involves her own flesh and blood. Remember that niece who showed up on Netflix defending Meghan, talking about how close they were, how much she admired her famous aunt? Well, sources are now asking one very uncomfortable question. Where exactly did she disappear to? Because when Meghan's cooking show dropped, when the cameras rolled in that suspiciously perfect kitchen, when celebrity after celebrity paraded through for their Hollywood hugs, there was one face noticeably absent. The same niece who stood up for Meghan when the world was watching, who put her own reputation on the line during that anti-royal documentary, has apparently been shown the door, and industry insiders are whispering that this might be Meghan's most calculated ghosting yet. Here's what makes this situation absolutely explosive. This isn't just any random family member we're talking about. This is Samantha Markle's daughter, the young woman who appeared on Harry and Meghan's documentary series and defended her aunt despite being left off the wedding guest list. Despite the hurt, despite the public humiliation of watching strangers celebrate while she sat at home, she showed up for Meghan when it mattered. She gave Meghan exactly what she needed at exactly the right time. Validation from a family member, proof that not everyone in the Markle clan was against her. But now that the cameras have stopped rolling on that particular project, now that Meghan's moved on to her next venture, that same niece has vanished into thin air. No cozy kitchen scenes, no family bonding moments, no trace of her existence in Meghan's carefully curated new world. The timing couldn't be more suspicious. Royal watchers are pointing out that Meghan had no problem trotting out her niece when she needed a family member to contradict Samantha's claims, when she needed someone young and sympathetic to humanize her story. But the moment that narrative served its purpose, the moment Meghan pivoted to Hollywood friendships and celebrity endorsements, that niece became about as relevant as yesterday's headlines. And people are noticing the pattern, because this isn't the first time Meghan's been accused of using people and then discarding them when they're no longer useful. But doing it to your own niece? That's a whole different level of cold. Sources close to the situation suggest this disappearance raises serious questions about Meghan's character and her intentions. Was the niece's appearance on Netflix ever about genuine family reconciliation? Or was it always just another chess move in Meghan's public relations game? And here's what really stings. This is the same woman who's now hosting a show called With Love Meghan, preaching about warmth, connection, and creating loving spaces. The same woman who chose the word healing for her rebrand while simultaneously ghosting the family member who defended her. The hypocrisy is staggering, and the internet isn't letting it slide. But that's just the beginning of this story. Let's rewind to that moment when Samantha Markle's daughter made her surprise appearance on the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary. It was a calculated move, perfectly timed, and it gave Meghan exactly what she desperately needed at that moment. A family member willing to go on camera and paint a softer picture. The niece sat there vulnerable and honest, talking about her relationship with Meghan, describing moments of connection, insisting that despite everything that had happened, despite all the family drama exploding across tabloids worldwide, she still believed in her aunt. She spoke about feeling hurt over the wedding snub, admitting that not receiving an invitation had stung, that watching the royal spectacle from afar while strangers filled the pews had been painful. But even through that hurt, she maintained that she understood, that she still cared, that family meant something to her. The documentary team framed it perfectly. Here was a young woman, clearly emotional, clearly genuine, offering Meghan a lifeline in the middle of a PR nightmare, while Samantha Markle was out there doing interviews, filing lawsuits, calling her half-sister every name in the book. Here was Samantha's own daughter taking Meghan's side. The optics were golden. It sent a message that Meghan couldn't be all bad if even Samantha's daughter was willing to defend her, willing to see past the noise and drama. Royal commentators at the time noted how strategic this appearance felt, how it seemed designed to counter the narrative that Meghan had completely severed ties with every single Markle family member except her mother Doria. Look, the documentary seemed to say, Meghan does have family who love her, who understand her, who see the real woman behind the headlines. But here's where things get interesting. The niece didn't just defend Meghan. She opened herself up to potential backlash from her own mother. Think about that for a second. She went on international television, knowing it would air in hundreds of countries, knowing millions would watch, and she chose Meghan's side over Samantha's. That takes guts, or maybe it takes something else. Maybe it takes a promise, an understanding, a belief that this appearance would lead to something more. Maybe she thought this was the beginning of a real relationship with her famous aunt, that standing up for Meghan when it mattered would finally earn her a place in Meghan's inner circle. Maybe she imagined future invitations, family gatherings, being part of Archie and Lilibet's lives. Industry insiders now suggest that appearance was never about building a lasting relationship. It was about crisis management, about softening Meghan's image during a particularly brutal news cycle. The niece served her purpose beautifully, delivered the emotional testimony Meghan needed, and then apparently became expendable. Because once the documentary dropped, once the headlines shifted, once Meghan moved on to her next project, that niece might as well have never existed, and the silence that followed speaks volumes about how Meghan really operates. So what happened next changed everything. Let's talk about the original wound that started all of this, the royal wedding that became one of the most watched events in television history. May 19, 2018, Windsor Castle, 800 guests packed into St. George's Chapel, and millions more watching worldwide. It was supposed to be a fairy tale moment, the American actress marrying her prince, breaking barriers, making history. But for Meghan's niece, it was the day she learned exactly where she stood in her aunt's priorities. Because while George and Amal Clooney sat front and center, while Oprah Winfrey got a prime spot, while celebrities Meghan barely knew received engraved invitations, her own niece wasn't even considered. Not a +1, not a distant seat in the back, not even a courtesy invitation with the understanding she might decline. Nothing. The rejection cut deep, and the niece admitted as much during that Netflix documentary. She described the hurt, the confusion, the feeling of watching something so momentous happen to a family member while being completely excluded from it. And here's what made it worse: Meghan's entire family was essentially banned from the wedding except for Doria. No father, no sister, no brother, no nieces, no nephews. The only Markle blood relative in that chapel was Meghan's mother, sitting alone on that bride's side, while Harry's side overflowed with royals, aristocrats, and family connections going back generations. The optics were already terrible. The imagery of Doria isolated in that pew became one of the most talked about moments of the day. Adding even one family member, especially a young niece who'd done nothing wrong, might have softened that visual. But Meghan made her choice. The excuse that emerged later was almost more insulting than the snub itself. Palace sources allegedly claimed that inviting the niece would raise questions about why Samantha wasn't there, that it would create an uncomfortable situation, that people would wonder about the family dynamics. But let's be real here, everything about that wedding broke protocol. They had a gospel choir, which was a beautiful and groundbreaking first. Prince Charles walked Meghan halfway down the aisle even though he wasn't her blood relative, another unprecedented move. Meghan wore a pure white gown and veil for what was technically her second marriage, a choice that raised eyebrows among traditionalists. Concession after concession was made to accommodate Meghan's vision, to make her feel comfortable, to blend American and British traditions. So the idea that inviting one niece was somehow impossible, that's hard to swallow. What really happened, according to people close to the situation, is that Meghan had already decided which family members served her new narrative and which didn't. Her niece, tied to Samantha, represented the complicated, messy Markle family drama that Meghan wanted to erase completely. Better to have no extended family than to have family members who might remind people of the relatives Meghan was actively cutting off. The niece became collateral damage in Meghan's scorched earth approach to her past. And that betrayal set the stage for everything that came next. Fast forward to 2025, and Meghan's latest project drops on Netflix. With Love, Meghan promised to showcase warmth, connection, and the art of bringing people together. The trailers teased celebrity guests, intimate moments, cooking and entertaining in that picture-perfect kitchen that looked like it came straight out of a Pottery Barn catalog. Fans and critics alike tuned in, curious to see what Meghan would deliver this time. And as the episodes rolled out, something became glaringly obvious. That niece who'd defended Meghan so passionately on the documentary, nowhere to be found. Not in the kitchen cooking alongside her aunt, not sitting at the table sharing stories, not even mentioned in passing. It was like she'd been completely erased from Meghan's universe. Royal watchers started asking uncomfortable questions almost immediately. Where was the family reconciliation that the documentary seemed to promise? If Meghan was truly about healing and love, wouldn't featuring the niece who stood by her make perfect sense? Wouldn't that be the ultimate full-circle moment, showing that forgiveness and family bonds can survive even the messiest public feuds? Instead, the show paraded out Chrissy Teigen, a celebrity Meghan barely knows, someone she'd only met a handful of times at industry events. They hugged in that fake kitchen like long-lost sisters, gushing over each other with the kind of exaggerated enthusiasm that made regular people cringe. "Oh my God, you're so wonderful." The phoniness was palpable. The disconnect between the manufactured Hollywood friendship and the abandoned real family member couldn't have been more obvious. People magazine even asked Chrissy if she and Meghan had arranged any playdates for their kids. You know, since they were supposedly so close now. Chrissy's response was telling. "Oh no, but I don't like to leave my house." Translation? They're not actually friends. There's no real relationship there. It was a transactional appearance, celebrity helping celebrity boost their respective brands. But if you genuinely connected with someone, if you had that amazing time the show portrayed, you'd find a way to maintain the friendship, especially when your kids are similar ages. You'd make it work. But Chrissy couldn't even pretend convincingly in the follow-up interview, and that revealed everything about how shallow these Hollywood connections really are for Meghan. Meanwhile, Meghan's actual niece, the one who risked her relationship with her own mother to defend Meghan, has has been completely ghosted. No Instagram posts featuring her, no casual mentions in interviews, no indication she exists in Meghan's current life. It's like once the Netflix documentary served its purpose, once that particular narrative was complete, the niece became invisible. Sources close to the situation describe it as a cruel pattern. Meghan extracts what she needs from people and then discards them without a second thought. The niece gave Meghan credibility when she desperately needed a family member in her corner. She delivered her lines perfectly, played her part beautifully, and then apparently got shown the exit. But this disappearing act reveals something much darker about Meghan's character. Here's the thing about Meghan Markle that nobody can ignore anymore. This niece situation isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a deeply disturbing pattern that's been playing out for years, a trail of discarded relationships that tells you everything you need to know about how she operates. Let's walk through the wreckage, shall we? Her father Thomas, the man who paid for her private school education, who worked in Hollywood lighting for decades to give her opportunities, completely cut off after the wedding chaos. Sure, he made mistakes. Sure, he handled the paparazzi situation poorly. But the total severance, the absolute refusal to reconcile or even speak to him, that's cold, especially when he's had health scares and publicly begged for contact with his grandchildren. Then there's Samantha, her half-sister. Whatever their issues, whatever their differences, the scorched earth approach Meghan's taken is extreme. Samantha's now involved in lawsuits, fighting in court just to defend her reputation against claims made in that Oprah interview. The relationship is so toxic, so completely destroyed, that it's hard to imagine any path back. And Meghan's brother, also cut off, also exiled from her new life. The message is clear. If you're a Markle and you're not Doria, you don't exist in Meghan's world. But it's not just family. Remember her childhood friends, the people she grew up with in Los Angeles. They've been systematically erased too. Nanaki Pretty, her best friend since childhood, someone who was in her wedding to Trevor Engelson, has spoken about how Meghan just stopped communicating once she got famous, once she leveled up socially. Speaking of Trevor, let's talk about that first marriage. Meghan was with this man for years, married him in a beautiful ceremony in Jamaica, and then allegedly mailed her wedding rings back to him when she decided the relationship no longer served her career trajectory. No long conversation, no attempt at counseling, just a cold exit when a better opportunity presented itself. People who know Trevor describe him as blindsided, devastated by how ruthlessly Meghan ended things. And here's where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Meghan doesn't just end relationships when they stop working. She completely erases people from her narrative as if they never existed. She rewrites her history, edits out anyone who doesn't fit her current story, and moves forward without looking back. Royal aides who worked with her at Kensington Palace. Multiple staff members quit or requested transfers, with rumors of bullying and impossible demands. Some of those allegations are still being investigated, with palace sources describing a toxic work environment. Jessica Mulroney, who was arguably Meghan's closest friend during the royal years, her kids were in the wedding party, she was Meghan's stylist and confidant. That friendship imploded during a social media controversy, and Meghan dropped her faster than yesterday's news. No loyalty, no benefit of the doubt, just instant disposal when the association became inconvenient. And now we can add her niece to this growing list of casualties. Let's dig into what might be the most telling comparison of all. The difference between how Meghan treats actual family versus how she performs friendship with celebrities. That With Love Meghan episode featuring Chrissy Teigen was a masterclass in Hollywood fakery, and people saw right through it. The moment Chrissy walked into that suspiciously pristine kitchen, the over-the-top greeting started. Hugging like they were reuniting after years apart, gushing about each other with the kind of enthusiasm that felt rehearsed and artificial. Oh my God, you're so wonderful. Regular people watching this spectacle couldn't help but think, this is exactly what we imagine fake Hollywood friendships look like. All performance, no substance. Just two celebrities using each other for relevancy and screen time. But here's what made the whole thing even more ridiculous. When People magazine followed up and asked if Chrissy and Meghan had arranged any playdates for their children, since they're supposedly such close friends now, Chrissy basically admitted they're not actually friends at all. Oh no, but I don't like to leave my house. That's not what you say about someone you genuinely connected with. If you had the amazing time that episode portrayed, if you really bonded with someone, you'd find ways to maintain that friendship. Your kids are similar ages, you both live in California, you'd make it happen. But Chrissy couldn't even fake it convincingly in the interview, and that revealed everything. They're not friends, they're acquaintances, doing transactional television appearances to boost their respective brands. And let's not forget the absolute irony of Chrissy Teigen being on a show about love, warmth, and creating safe spaces. This is the same woman who bullied a teenage girl online, who told someone to take their own life in multiple public messages, who had to issue a groveling apology when her cruel behavior finally caught up with her. Meghan's supposedly so passionate about protecting children from online bullying, yet she's hugging it out in her kitchen with someone who embodied that exact behavior. The hypocrisy is stunning. If Meghan genuinely cared about her anti-bullying platform, Chrissy Teigen would be the last person she'd feature. But principles take a back seat when you need celebrity friends to make your show look relevant. The cherry on top of this fake friendship sundae? During that same episode, Chrissy showed off the tattoo on her forearm with all her children's birth dates. Sweet moment, right? Except when someone asked her when one of her kids was actually born. She had to turn to her husband John Legend and ask him, "John, when is so-and-so's birthday? You couldn't make this up." She has the dates permanently inked on her body, and she still doesn't know them. It was such a perfectly awkward moment that captured everything wrong with that whole production. Surface-level gestures without any real substance or meaning behind them. Meanwhile, Meghan's actual niece, who defended her when it actually cost something, remains invisible and forgotten. Imagine being Samantha Markle right now, watching this entire situation unfold from the outside. Your daughter, your own child, went on international television and took Meghan's side over yours. She defended Meghan publicly, knowing it would strain your relationship, knowing it would create tension in your own family dynamic. She put herself in the middle of a media firestorm, became part of Meghan's narrative, and gave her half-aunt exactly what she needed at exactly the right moment. And now that daughter has been ghosted, used up and discarded like everyone else who gets too close to Meghan Markle. For Samantha, this has to sting in ways that go beyond their own fractured relationship. This is about watching Meghan hurt your child, watching your daughter learn the hard way what kind of person Meghan really is. Samantha's been fighting Meghan in court, filing defamation lawsuits over statements made during that Oprah interview. She's been called every name in the book, painted as jealous, bitter, attention-seeking. The narrative around Samantha has been brutal, with Meghan's supporters dismissing her as a scorned half-sister trying to ride coattails to fame. But here's what makes this niece situation so significant. It proves Samantha's been right all along about Meghan's character. Samantha's been saying for years that Meghan uses people, that she's transactional, that she discards anyone who no longer serves her purposes. And now her own daughter just experienced that exact treatment firsthand. It's the ultimate vindication of everything Samantha's been trying to tell people, except it came at the cost of her daughter getting hurt. Royal watchers point out that this ghosting actually strengthens Samantha's legal position in some ways. When you're trying to prove someone has a pattern of behavior, when you're trying to establish character in court, having your own daughter become another casualty of Meghan's scorched earth tactics, that's powerful evidence. It shows this isn't about Samantha being difficult or jealous. It's about Meghan having a fundamental inability to maintain relationships with anyone who knew her before she became royalty. The niece did everything right. She was supportive, she was loyal, she defended Meghan when it mattered, and she still got cut off. That tells you this isn't about other people's behavior, it's about Meghan's. But there's something even more painful in all of this for Samantha. As a mother, watching your child get used and manipulated has to trigger protective instincts that go beyond any personal grievance. Samantha might have accepted being cut off herself. She's an adult, she can handle the rejection. But watching Meghan do the same thing to the next generation, watching her daughter experience that betrayal, that crosses a line that makes this fight personal in a whole new way. Sources close to Samantha suggest she's angrier about how her daughter was treated than about her own exclusion. And that kind of maternal fury doesn't just disappear. This ghosting might have just given Samantha even more motivation to expose exactly who Meghan really is. And the theories about why the niece disappeared get even more uncomfortable. Now we're entering territory that makes people deeply uncomfortable, but royal commentators have been whispering about it for months. And after this niece situation, the theory is gaining serious traction. There's speculation, and this is uncomfortable to say out loud, that Meghan sees younger, attractive women as competition, even when those women are her own family members. The niece, by all accounts, is an attractive young woman. Not a list celebrity gorgeous, but pretty enough that having her around might draw attention away from Meghan. And if there's one thing that seems to trigger Meghan more than anything else, it's someone else being in the spotlight, someone else getting admiration or attention that she believes should be directed at her. Look at the pattern with Princess Catherine. Royal insiders have described an almost obsessive level of jealousy and competition on Meghan's part. Catherine, who's elegant, poised, beloved by millions, represents everything Meghan wanted to be but couldn't quite achieve. The constant comparisons in the media, the public's clear preference for Catherine's style and grace, it allegedly drove Meghan to distraction during her time as a working royal. Comments made during the Oprah interview, the implications in the Netflix series, they all point to someone who couldn't handle being second to Catherine in the public's affection. And Catherine wasn't even trying to compete. She was just being herself, doing her job, but that somehow made it worse for Meghan. This same jealous streak might explain why Meghan surrounds herself with people who won't outshine her. Notice who shows up on her projects? Celebrities who are either past their prime or dealing with their own reputation issues. Chrissy Teigen, who's been cancelled and is desperate for redemption. Actresses and personalities who need Meghan as much as she needs them. There's no one in her inner circle who might steal focus, who might be prettier, more charming, more naturally likable. Everything is carefully controlled to keep Meghan as the main character at all times. Royal commentators who've studied her behavior note that she even seemed uncomfortable when her own friends looked too good at events, when other women in her circle received compliments or positive attention. So when you apply that psychology to the niece situation, things start making disturbing sense. Having a young, fresh-faced family member around creates a problem for someone as image-obsessed as Meghan. What if people warmed to the niece? What if she came across as more genuine, more relatable, more naturally likable than Meghan herself? What if tabloids started running comparison pieces, or people started commenting on social media about how lovely the niece was? For someone who needs to control every aspect of her public image, that's an unacceptable risk. Better to use the niece when she's needed for a specific narrative, keep her at arm's length otherwise, and then ghost her completely once she's served her purpose. Industry insiders who've worked with Meghan describe someone who cannot tolerate being upstaged under any circumstances. Staff members learned quickly never to look too polished, never to be too friendly with other royals, never to develop their own rapport with the press. Everything had to flow through Meghan. Everything had to center Meghan. That same controlling, insecure energy might explain why a perfectly lovely niece gets erased from the story. She wasn't a threat in any real sense, but in Meghan's mind, any woman who might draw even a fraction of attention away is a problem that needs to be eliminated. And this ghosting exposes the biggest lie of all about Meghan's brand. Let's talk about the absolutely staggering hypocrisy that this niece situation exposes. Meghan Markle is currently trying to sell herself as the Empress of warmth, love, and connection. Her Netflix show is literally called With Love, Meghan. She chose healing as her keyword for 2025, plastering it across interviews and promotional materials. She's positioning herself as someone who brings people together, who creates safe and nurturing spaces, who understands the importance of family and relationships. And yet, behind the carefully curated scenes of that fake kitchen and those staged celebrity hugs, she's ghosting her own niece, the woman who defended her, who stood up for her when it actually cost something, who risked her relationship with her own mother to give Meghan credibility. That's not healing. That's weaponizing people and discarding them when they're no longer useful. The disconnect between Meghan's brand and her actual behavior has never been more glaring. You cannot preach about love while systematically cutting off every family member who's ever existed in your life. You cannot talk about creating warm spaces while treating people like disposable props in your personal narrative. You cannot use healing as your tagline while leaving a trail of hurt people in your wake. The public isn't stupid, people can see through the performance, and every time another story like this emerges, it chips away at whatever credibility Meghan has left. Royal commentators are pointing out that her entire rebrand rests on people believing she's genuine, that she's evolved, that she's learned from past mistakes. But this niece situation proves nothing has changed. The pattern continues. The transactional relationships keep playing out exactly the same way. What makes this even more damaging is the timing. Meghan's in the middle of what insiders describe as a desperate push to salvage her reputation and her business ventures. American Riviera Orchard, her lifestyle brand, has been plagued with delays and lukewarm reception. The Netflix projects aren't getting the viewership or critical acclaim she needs. Poll numbers show her approval ratings in both the US and UK are dismal. She needs people to root for her, to see her as relatable and authentic, to believe in the warm, nurturing persona she's trying to project. Instead, stories like this reinforce every negative perception people already have. She's calculating, she's cold, she's someone who uses people without conscience or consequence. Industry experts suggest that brands and companies considering partnerships with Meghan have to be looking at situations like this and asking hard questions. Do we want to associate with someone whose personal behavior contradicts every value she claims to represent? Do we want our products connected to someone who treats family this way? Authenticity is currency in today's market. Consumers can smell fake from a mile away, and Meghan's increasingly coming across as the most inauthentic person in entertainment. Every ghosted relationship, every discarded connection, every person who speaks out about being used, it all adds up to a brand that's fundamentally broken. You cannot sell love and healing when you embody the opposite. So where does this leave Meghan, and what happens next? Here's what everyone's wondering now. Will Meghan's niece eventually speak out? Because if there's one thing we've learned from watching the Markle family saga unfold, it's that people don't stay silent forever when they've been used and discarded. Thomas Markle went to the press, Samantha wrote a book and filed lawsuits. Former friends have given interviews, Palace staff leaked stories about the bullying allegations. The pattern is clear. Once people realize they've been manipulated and ghosted, they tend to find their voice. And this niece has a story to tell that could be absolutely devastating. She could detail what promises were made before that Netflix appearance, what conversations happened behind the scenes, what she was led to believe about her future relationship with Meghan. She could confirm whether this was always transactional or whether she genuinely thought they were building something real. The timing of any potential interview or statement from the niece could be catastrophic for Meghan. Royal watchers note that 2025 was supposed to be Meghan's comeback year, the year of the Markle sparkle as she reportedly called it. Instead, it's been one disaster after another. The Vanity Fair American Hustle cover that backfired spectacularly, the cooking show that got lukewarm reviews and mediocre ratings, the lifestyle brand that can't seem to get off the ground. She's already dealing with what insiders describe as genuine desperation, a frantic energy to make something, anything, work before public interest disappears completely. Adding a tell-all from her own niece to that mix? That could be the final nail in the coffin of her rebrand. But there's an even bigger shift coming that has Meghan reportedly panicking behind closed doors. Prince William's future reign. Sources close to the palace suggest that when William becomes king, the kid gloves come off regarding Harry and Meghan. No more polite silence, no more taking the high road, no more allowing misinformation and attacks to go unanswered. William has allegedly made it clear to his inner circle that he won't tolerate the ongoing drama, that there will be consequences for continued attacks on his family, particularly on Catherine. The protective fury he feels over how his wife has been treated, the anger over how his children have been dragged into this mess, it's building to something significant. And Meghan knows that her current strategy of playing victim while throwing grenades won't work once William has the full power and authority of the monarchy behind him. The desperation radiating from Montecito right now makes sense when you understand what's at stake. Meghan's watching her Hollywood dreams crumble, her family relationships implode one after another, her public image deteriorate beyond repair. And now this niece situation adds another layer of evidence to the case against her character. People are paying attention, they're connecting the dots, they're recognizing patterns that can't be explained away or spun by even the best PR teams. The woman who wanted to be beloved, admired, and envied is instead becoming a cautionary tale about what happens when ambition completely overtakes authenticity, when using people becomes your primary strategy, when you burn every bridge without considering that one day you might need those connections. So what do you think? Was Meghan's niece always just a pawn in a bigger PR game? Or did she genuinely believe they were building a real relationship? And will we eventually hear her side of the story? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and stay tuned because the next video is dropping soon, and trust me, you won't believe what we're uncovering next. The Markle saga continues to unravel, and we're here for every shocking moment.